Thank you. My name is Cristina Della Coletta. I am the Dean of the UC San Diego Division of Arts and Humanities. Much like 2021 Kyoto Prize laureate Bruno Latour, the disciplines in the Division of Arts and Humanities push the boundaries of research, creativity, and understanding. We recognize our faculty as international experts in their fields, from music and theater to history, literature, and philosophy. In 2015, philosopher Professor Craig Callender had what our local media called a big idea: to become a major voice on ethical science. Big ideas take big steps to come to fruition, of course, but with the dedication and support from campus and our larger community, we launched the region's very first Institute for Practical Ethics. As a signature initiative in the Division of Arts and Humanities, the Institute serves as an interdisciplinary research unit dedicated to the goal of creating socially responsible science and policy. Co-led by Craig and sociologist John Evans, the Institute for Practical Ethics develops and promotes research on ethical issues facing the public. Under their leadership, the Institute has pursued a number of large-scale research themes: science and democracy, active genetics, data science and big data, and the ethics and social implications surrounding the environment, easily one of the most pressing issues facing the world, both today and in the future. For we want a future that is both scientifically advanced and ethical, a future that considers real-world human impact and environmental preservation, along with technological advances. UC San Diego is a global leader in new technology, medical innovation, and groundbreaking science. With this comes the urgent need to embed ethicists, historians, and social scientists hand in hand with engineers, chemists, and medical practitioners. As a public institution focused on advancing research across disciplines to better all of society, it is fitting we help you celebrate this revered individual with the Kyoto Prize. Congratulations. In addition to Craig Callender, there is no one better to help lead the Institute for Practical Ethics than John Evans. The Tata Chancellor's Chair in Social Sciences, John has published research ranging from the profession of bioethics, the controversies surrounding reproductive genetics, and the intersection of religion, science, ethics, and politics. In addition to his research and administrative duties at UC San Diego, John was also invited to serve as a member of an ad hoc committee of the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine. In this role, he provided guidance on the ethical, legal, and regulatory issues around brain organoid research, a leading example of the impact we know the Institute for Practical Ethics can have on policy. Please welcome comments from John Evans. Thank you.
Hello, my name is John Evans. I'm a professor of sociology and co-director of the Institute for Practical Ethics at UCSD. It's great to see you all after so long apart, but I'm afraid a face-to-face meeting with me and this group will have to wait a bit longer as I have family obligations out of town. As Cristina just mentioned, the Institute for Practical Ethics, which I co-direct with Craig Callender, is a research center under the auspices of the Division of Arts and Humanities. We start with the point that UCSD receives something like $1.4 billion a year in research grants, and therefore it's critical that the university investigate the social implications and ethics of all this activity. We facilitate debate and research on the implications and ethics of all sorts of technologies, from gene-drive mosquitoes to artificial intelligence, to human brain organoids, human genotyping, all the way to moonshot technologies like creating a mirror copy of a cell. Now, this might make it more clear why I have the honor of introducing the 2021 Kyoto Prize laureate in Arts and Philosophy, Bruno Latour. We can start with the easiest part of Latour to describe, which is his life and his occupation. He was born in Beaune, France. He's related to a well-known family of winemakers from the Burgundy region, so whomever buys the wine for Kyoto events, you have been warned. He earned his PhD in 1975 at the University of Tours in what we would call the philosophy of religion. He developed an interest in anthropology and an interest in how science is conducted. He began what was essentially ethnographic fieldwork to examine how science is actually conducted compared to what science textbooks say about how it's actually conducted. The first research was right here at the Salk Institute and resulted in a co-authored book in 1979 named Laboratory Life. This is one of his most influential books. From 1982 to 2006, he was a professor at the Center for the Sociology of Innovation at the School of Mines in Paris. And from 2006 to 2016, he was professor at the Paris Institute of Political Studies, which is one of the most elite institutions in France. Latour has had an enormous influence across a very large range of disciplines, such as history, philosophy, anthropology, sociology, and most notably, science studies. The best summary is that he's a philosopher and social scientist of science and technology. It's very hard to underestimate his influence. He's written over a dozen books and many, many articles. I'm not usually one to count citations as a fine-grained measure of impact, but his first book has been cited over 24,000 times, his subsequent book 34,000 times, another has been cited 24,000, yet another 36,000. It's been said that across all academic journals, he's the 10th highest cited author of all time, ahead of Karl Marx and Martin Heidegger. I think it's particularly important that Latour has been honored with the Kyoto Prize. The reason is that the social force that has most transformed our social and physical world over the past 3,000 or 4,000 years has been science and technology. A topic of critical debate over these thousands of years has been the relationship of us humans to the natural world. And at its most basic, science is discovering facts about the natural world, and technology is manipulating that natural world to fit the needs of humans. If this is the most powerful force in the world, it'd be good to understand it on a number of levels. One question would be, what is scientific activity? To take but one debate that Latour has been instrumental in, to what extent do human interests and human perceptions determine what is considered by scientists to be true? As Hegel wrote, truth is not a minted coin that can be given and pocketed ready-made. So in science, truth does not leap from an instrument in a lab into a textbook as an established fact, but rather there's an elaborate social process for establishing what's considered to be a fact. We should not just examine the scientific claims now thought to be false, like eugenics or cold fusion. We should also examine how this process works for scientific claims that are now considered to be true. Latour's work would also suggest that it does not help science or help the problems we are trying to solve with science if we think that the acceptance or rejection of scientific theories is simply a reflection of evidence and reason. If this phrase sounds familiar, it's because it describes the American public and belief about COVID vaccines, which indicates that this is not a new issue. Scientific reason is definitely not the only force in public acceptance of COVID vaccines. At minimum, we can say that the same evidence and reason is interpreted quite differently depending on your social location and what social networks you're embedded in. Latour has been central in understanding what can often be the limited impact of evidence and reason and acceptance of scientific claims. As part of his thought about the purpose of science in society, he's also been a critic of asking too much of science. In a talk a few years ago, he said that science can make objective fact claims about the world, but cannot deliver truth with a capital T. More importantly, those who want science to become a source of meaning and purpose for our society are making science into a religion. He would say that this is asking far too much of science, and my stance would be that it would create a particularly thin form of meaning for society. Latour has also been particularly successful through questioning the taken for granted dualities of our received wisdom about the world. To take but one controversial yet generative idea, is the person who acts in science the scientist, Or is it better to think of the actors in science as a network of not only humans, but inanimate objects like lab equipment? Even more radically, Latour has developed a philosophy that treats nature, humans, laboratory equipment, and other entities as social actors, and describing science as the network of these actors. At the same time, this means that his philosophy re-examines modernity based on the dualism of nature and society. Needless to say that there are those who agree and those who disagree with this perspective, but in disagreeing, it requires one to tighten up their own understanding and explanation. More recently, Latour has turned to global environmental issues. The most proximate reason for global warming is that we burn too many fossil fuels. The more distal, but more consequential reason is that we have the wrong attitude towards the natural world. Latour would say that our thinking about the world that has led to global warming is a failure of the dualistic conceptions of modernity. In other words, the human-centered concept of nature and environment have led us down a path towards climate change. If dualisms like human and nature have dominated our thinking, it's time for some new concepts, he would say. He wants us to reorient our societal thinking, and therefore our politics are on the idea of the terrestrial, which is the living and non-living entities in the biosphere. I suspect you'll be hearing more about these ideas in his lecture. I'm very excited that the Kyoto Prize has been awarded to Professor Latour. I know you will all enjoy meeting him and hearing what will undoubtedly be a fascinating lecture. Again, I'm sorry I cannot be here in person, but I do look forward to seeing you all in the not too distant future. Thank you very much.